friends, it's Friday. We are going to be getting started with some social studies. It's kind of related to what we talked about last week when we talked about all kinds of different landforms. We're going to be learning about a couple new ones today, and then we'll be doing sort of like a sorting activity in your packets. So I'll review the landforms we're going to be talking about today that we've already covered. There's a few that we won't talk about today that we talked about last week because I'm adding some new ones in. So the first one we'll review is a hill. Now remember, a hill is a raised piece of the earth, but it's not quite tall enough to be a mountain, and it's not flat. So a hill is just kind of like a lower raised piece of earth. Here's another example. We looked at these last week. And then a valley. A valley is going to be another one we're reviewing. Remember, a valley is a space between two hills or mountains. It's that low grassy area. It doesn't even have to be grassy, but it's just a low flat area in between two high points. So in between two mountains or hills, you usually find a valley. And a lot of them have streams and rivers that run through them, but not all of them. The next one is a lake. Remember, a lake is just a body of water that has land all around it, and they're not part of the ocean. They have fresh water in them, and usually rivers feed into them. So lakes are kind of cool because they're like a mini ocean surrounded by land almost. Fresh water. See how it has land all around. Volcano is the last one we're going to review. Remember, volcano is kind of like a mountain, but it actually has an opening at the top that allows pieces of the earth, such as like the lava, the rocks, the steam, and gases to come out of the earth and relieves pressure, which is pretty cool. Again, you can see the gases, the rock, the lava coming out. Those are all key parts of a volcano. So those are some reviews of things we talked about last week. Now let's talk about some new ones. I have a couple new ones I'm going to show you guys. The first one is an ocean, which a lot of you probably know what the ocean is, but we'll cover it. It's salt water, first of all. So whereas lakes are fresh water, oceans are made out of salt water, and they're big, right? Oceans make up all of the area that isn't land. Connecting continents. So while lakes are always surrounded by land, oceans kind of do the opposite. Instead of being surrounded by land, they surround the land. And oceans are pretty cool, you guys. Believe it or not, we have more ocean than we do land on Earth, which is pretty crazy to think about. Here's another picture. See, it's just a big body of salt water. We're lucky because in Washington, we live kind of on the coast. Here we live very close to the coast, so we can often go to see the beach and see the ocean, whereas if you lived more in the middle of the country, it would be harder for you to see the ocean. You'd have to travel further. The next one is a mountain. So looking at this mountain up here, mountains, again, they're not hills because they're bigger, much bigger. And whereas hills are just kind of like raised earth, mountains are actually parts of the earth that are colliding together and pushing each other up. So mountains are usually pretty massive, and they're actually parts of the Earth's crust that are just pushing together, and when two pieces push together, they're going to meet, and they can either go in or up. And mountains are when the Earth meets and goes up. So mountains are pretty cool. They're pretty fascinating. We have a lot of them around here, which is again pretty cool. This is a great picture because if you can see in front, there's a little hill in front, grassy hill, but behind it is a much larger, much bigger mountain. So you can really see and compare the two differences between hills and mountains in this picture. The next one is a river. So rivers are pretty cool because we have a lot of them again around here. They're moving bodies of water, they're fresh water, they feed lakes, they feed the oceans. They usually start somewhere on top of mountains, and usually the snow on top of mountains, when it melts, it has to go somewhere, so it usually flows into rivers, and rivers feed usually all other larger bodies of water. So rivers are pretty cool. We have quite a few around here, And they're very interesting because rivers, here's another one, are not very big compared to lakes or compared to the ocean. They're not super big, but they move, which is super cool and impressive because they really just work off high pieces of land like mountains and hills and low pieces of land to keep them moving and flowing. The last new one we're going to talk about is a waterfall. Waterfalls are pretty cool landforms. They're not anything they don't have like a huge purpose like a lot of the ones we talked about, like rivers or moving the water and mountains or the earth pushing together. Waterfalls just happen when they're a part of a river, and sometimes they might lead to a little lake or a pond, but waterfalls basically are just where there's a big drop off in the earth. There's a high point and a low point that a river might go over, but as you can see, it is really steep. So there's no way for the water in the river to keep going, and gradually come down. It just drops off that really steep part of the earth. So that's what creates a waterfall. It's just a river going off a really steep piece of earth down to a much lower piece. Some waterfalls, they're not super big. You can even find maybe a waterfall that might only be a couple feet tall. That might just drop off. Then you can find waterfalls that are massive and way bigger than any building, which is pretty cool. We have a really nice big waterfall called the Snoqualmie Falls, and that one is up north. But Snoqualmie Falls is really cool because especially when the mountains start to lose their snow and they melt, it is huge. So here's a picture of that. Some of you may have seen it before, some of you may have not. So this one is pretty cool because it is local to us. So those are the different landforms we're going to be talking about today. And basically what you're going to do is, we'll look at your worksheet. You're going to cut out the landforms just like we kind of practiced last week. Except the difference is, instead of labeling the word to the picture, you're going to take the picture, has the word with it. So you have waterfall, volcano, river, mountain, ocean, lake, valley, and hill. And you're going to sort them by two things, land or water. So up here we have land, here we have water down at the bottom. And so you're going to paste it into the right category. So let's look up here, hills. Do hills have anything to do with water? Not really, right? We talked about hills are raised pieces of land. So I would cut out hills and paste it in land. Then we'll look at valley. What about a valley? You can kind of look at the picture as well if you need help. A valley, remember, it's a low piece of land in between two mountains or hills. Do those have anything to do with water? No, not really, right? We said sometimes streams run through them, but the actual valley itself is land. So we'd put that in the land area. Then lake. Lake. What about lakes? Do lakes have more to do with land or water? What do you think? Water, right? Because lakes are fresh water surrounded by land. So lakes are water. That's the part that would go down here in the water section. So you'll do the rest for the rest of them. We've done hills, valley, and lake. So hills and valley are land and lake is water. Now you'll do ocean. Is it land or water? Mountains, rivers, volcanoes, and waterfalls. So your job is to go through, cut out, and sort. Is it a landform, or does it have to do with water? Is it a water formation? All right, can't wait to see you guys.